Man, am I stoked for today's game. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is a certified classic that myself and all of Eastern Europe have been playing for 25 years straight. This is one of those rare examples of games that feels like it gets better as you age, and you start to appreciate all the incredible strategies and design details, and I'm really excited to show you why. Let's go. Heroes 3 is a game with a still thriving, cult-like player base of adoring fans, and set the bar so high for design in its specific strategy turn-based genre that nothing has been able to capture the magic, or might, I suppose, in the same way since its release in 1999, despite many attempts to do so. I am playing on the only truly correct version, the Complete Edition, which you can get from GOG, because it has both expansions and mod support, unlike the Steam HD Edition, and it's often also substantially cheaper. It has an active and frequently updated modding scene, and is one of the finest examples of the timeless nature of extremely well-designed games. There's a lot of layers to that excellent game design though, so let's take a closer look at what's made this somewhat unassuming looking game, at least at a glance, so immortal. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 has a 2D art style that just drips with character and charm. This was an era where early 3D was considered necessary to jam into most games to keep up with the transition into the three-dimensional era, and comparing Heroes 3's 3D cinematics to its 2D gameplay is a fine example of how poorly early 3D aged relative to solid, polished 2D artwork. This was pretty good 3D cinematics for 1999 in my opinion. Character portraits are decidedly low resolution, but still manage to convey the personality of the heroes well, and sprites on the world map have short, repeating canned animations, making the world feel more alive. Resource dwellings and noteworthy structures often shimmer with little animations themselves to grab your attention as you explore. When you sum up all of these little animations together in concert as you reveal the map, the overworld starts to breathe with life. The town screens, hero portraits, and monster animations are all perfectly designed to capture the vibes and aesthetic of each town, each one wholly unique and buzzing with its own design flair and distinct style. The necropolis looks and feels dry and barren, void of life and any semblance of fertility, whereas the rampart is an enchanted forest, lush with bright green foliage, spotted with elvish and dwarven dwellings. The visual presentation is breathtaking and timeless. It's terribly nostalgic, and yet is superseded in its near perfection by the game's audio. If I had to place a vote for the best game OST of all time, Heroes 3 would be at, or at least very near, the absolute top of that list. Considering the age of the game, the number of sound effects present for every performed action is impressive, and the quality is solid relative to the era. The soundtrack, though, is unbelievable, and if we were to have a discussion about how a game's music can communicate with the player about the setting of a fantasy world, I can think of no better example than this. The way each town's theme conveys the nature of the little encapsulated atmosphere it exists within, and the monsters that inhabit it, perfection. Listen to the way the Inferno theme captures the spirit of the town. You can feel the little imps and gogs scurrying around, cackling amidst the lava-filled craters. Then the brass kicks in, and it's full-on fire and brimstone, a true hellish soundscape as we descend to the domain of the demons, pit lords, and devils. Now contrast this with the necropolis. The death knell sounds as a ghostly choir echoes through the empty halls. The shrill, shaky strings and dissonant bells tolling creates a sense of unease. Bones rattle together and creak as the wind blows, kicking up the dry dust of the infertile ground. Life cannot persist in this haunted domain. Alright, one more and a personal favorite theme. Let's head over to the fortress. Unnaturally large insects buzz around in this humid, fetid swamp. Witches cackle in the distance as the bog begins to bubble and glow. Giant, mutated creatures emerge from the luminescent pools, dripping with noxious poison. Do you see what I mean? You can feel the environments and how wonderfully distinct they are, and the music tells the story of what these creatures are and how they came to be. It's truly a masterclass in game soundtrack design. Gameplay consists of three primary components: traversing the overworld map, building up and managing your towns and heroes in their respective menu screens, and battling neutral monsters and enemy heroes that you encounter. On each of your turns, you will use your hero's allotted movement points for that turn, represented by the green bar to the left of their portrait, to traverse the overworld and visit various dwellings and structures while collecting resources, as well as attacking heroes and monster groups represented by character sprites. The overworld is fairly intuitive to navigate, but it still offers an air of mystery as you travel around, intrigue gripping you as the fog of war peels back, revealing what appears to be a new path to potential treasures. But the knowledge that you may find more that you bargained for lurking just beyond the horizon of darkness keeps you gripped as you make decisions about how far to advance in a given direction with your limited movement on each of your turns. Managing the towns and heroes is likely the least intuitive piece for a new player. Making decisions about what to purchase and when, and where to even click to do so, may seem daunting at first, but at its core, it's one of those simple to learn, hard to master things that shouldn't stand in your way for very long. Every town's units are all very unique, and it's extremely fun to make decisions about what units you want to build and try them out in battle. Speaking of battle, combat is turn-based on a grid and is an absolute blast. There are some nuances to combat that can help you out, like splitting off some single units into stacks to surround your archers and whatnot, offering increasing strategic depth and complexity as you become more adept with your town's units. Your troops will be a mix of melee and ranged units, moving in a turn-based order based on their speed, and heroes can even contribute to the battles by casting spells once per turn, some excelling at this more than others. Combat and the hero's specialties are on a spectrum of might and magic. Go figure, it's in the name. Sum all this together and you have a glorious gameplay loop that will have you losing track of time, then glancing up at the clock only to see it's 3 in the morning, and you've made a terrible mistake. Seriously, it happens literally every time I reinstall this game. A super quick note on the versions of Heroes 3 available, which I started to touch on in the intro. If you look on Steam and you use that as your primary digital library on PC, many do, you will find a version of Heroes 3 there called the HD Edition. This is entirely playable and you'll have fun, but sadly it's far from optimal. Despite some upscaled texture work, the HD Edition does not feature either of the expansions released for Heroes 3, which is a huge nerf to the available content, and it also makes it incompatible with the slew of extremely impressive community mods, such as Horn of the Abyss. These serve, if interested, to rebalance the gameplay, and also adds another mountain of new content, including multiplayer within the new content if desired. It's not good to get the HD edition if you care about any of that stuff. You should instead head over to GOG and grab the complete edition, as it remedies every single one of the issues stated above, while also usually costing less. It's 100% better in every conceivable way, with virtually no downside. It's an easy decision. A lot of people like to casually refer to older games as classics, but Heroes of Might and Magic 3 truly is a timeless gem. I fully recognize my bias and that I'm just glazing the shit out of it, but this is a game that still, over 25 years later, remains the best example of a game in this unique genre. It makes all games inspired by it that followed feel a bit like imitators, always lacking in some way. And this isn't one of those, the game I grew up with is the best, man, trust me, new games are whack. And then you look at the old game and it looks like Pong and it requires reading a novel of scrolling text. No, this is genuinely the best looking and playing version of this flavor of turn-based strategy game ever. Don't get me wrong, some of the Heroes-inspired titles are still sick, but you really should start here. The charm of this game, the engrossing gameplay, and the countless iterations of scenarios and towns and heroes, it just doesn't get old, even going on 3 decades later. You really should try it if you somehow missed it and enjoy turn-based games even a little bit. I'm really just hoping I've done it the justice that it deserves in this review. If you've enjoyed it, consider subscribing for more retro gaming and anime nonsense, and thanks for stopping by.